The plane's wheels hit the tarmac with a jarring thud that sent phantom pain shooting through my missing left arm. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days since I'd last set foot on American soil. I counted every one of them in the sterile hospital beds of Germany, through the grueling physical therapy sessions, and during the endless nights when sleep refused to come. My name is Marcus Sullivan, Staff Sergeant, United States Army. Or at least, I was. Now I wasn't sure what I was anymore. The IED that took my arm also took my sense of who I was supposed to be. The explosion had been so sudden, so violent, that my squad barely had time to react. One moment I was leading my men through a routine patrol in Kandahar. The next I was waking up in a military hospital with half my body gone and my life forever changed. But I was coming home. That had to count for something. I expected, no, I needed, my family to be waiting for me at the airport. My wife, Sarah, my 2 kids, Emma and Jake, maybe even my parents. During my deployment, Sarah's letters had been my lifeline. She wrote about Emma's first day of middle school, Jake's little league games, the new job she'd gotten at the marketing firm. Her words painted pictures of a life I was fighting to get back to. The arrivals gate was crowded with families, flowers, and welcome home signs. I scanned the faces, my heart hammering against my ribs. Groups of people rushed past me toward their loved ones. Soldiers were swept up in embraces. Children squealed with delight. But there was no Sarah, no Emma or Jake, no one holding a sign with my name. I stood there for 20 minutes, my duffel bag slung over my good shoulder, watching the crowd thin out. Maybe they were running late. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe they'd gotten the arrival time wrong. I called Sarah's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. The cab ride to our house in suburban Denver took 45 minutes and cost me $63 I couldn't really afford. The driver, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. He'd seen the empty sleeve pinned to my jacket. "Thank you for your service, son," he said as I climbed out. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Our house looked exactly the same. Same white picket fence, same red door, same flower beds Sarah had planted before I left. But something felt wrong. The driveway was empty. Sarah's Honda wasn't there. The windows were dark, even though it was only 6 in the evening. I used my key to open the front door, and immediately I knew. The house was empty. Not just quiet, empty. The furniture was gone. The family photos that had lined the hallway were missing, leaving only faded rectangles on the paint where they'd hung. In the living room, indentations in the carpet marked where our couch and coffee table had once been. I walked through each room methodically, my footsteps echoing in the hollow space. Emma's room, empty. Jake's room, empty. The master bedroom, empty except for a thin layer of dust and a single envelope on the windowsill. My hands shook as I opened it. Sarah's handwriting, which had once brought me such comfort, now felt like a blade being twisted in my chest. "Marcus, I'm sorry I couldn't do this face to face. I know you're probably angry, and you have every right to be. But I couldn't keep pretending that everything was going to be okay when you came back. I've met someone. His name is David, and he works at my company. He's been good to me and the kids during this difficult time. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but I've filed for divorce. The kids and I have moved in with David. Emma and Jake need stability right now, and honestly, so do I. Your injury changes everything, Marcus. I know that sounds cruel, but I have to think about what's best for our children. They need a father who can provide for them, who can play catch with Jake, who can walk Emma down the aisle someday. I've taken half of our savings account. The house is yours, though I'm not sure what you'll do with it. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce papers. I hope you can understand someday. Sarah, I read the letter 3 times before it fully sank in. then I crumpled it up and hurled it across the empty room with my one good arm. The rage came in waves, not just at Sarah, but at the unfairness of it all. I'd served my country. I'd lost a limb defending the freedoms that allowed her to write that heartless letter. And this was my reward? To come home to nothing? I spent that first night on the hardwood floor of what used to be our bedroom, staring at the ceiling and fighting the urge to drive my fist through the wall. The phantom pain in my missing arm was excruciating, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. Over the next few weeks, I tried to rebuild. I bought an air mattress and some basic furniture from thrift stores. I applied for jobs, though most potential employers seemed to focus more on what I couldn't do with one arm than what I could. The VA was helpful with counseling and benefits, but the bureaucratic maze was overwhelming. I called Sarah repeatedly, trying to reach the kids. She'd changed her number. I drove by their new address, a sprawling suburban house that made our modest home look like a shack. David's BMW sat in the driveway next to Sarah's Honda. Through the window, I could see Jake playing video games on a massive TV. When I knocked on the door, Sarah answered with a restraining order already in her hand. "I was hoping it wouldn't come to this," she said, not meeting my eyes. "But you can't keep showing up here, Marcus. You're scaring the children." "Scaring them? I'm their father." "You were their father. Now you're—" She gestured vaguely at my empty sleeve. "Look, I know this is hard, but you need to move on. We all do. The restraining order meant I couldn't come within 100 yards of their house, their schools, or Sarah's workplace. My own children had become strangers to me overnight, and I was legally forbidden from trying to change that. That's when I started planning. Sarah thought she could erase me from existence, pretend I'd never mattered. She'd taken my family, my savings, my sense of purpose, everything that had kept me going through the darkest moments overseas. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated what a soldier with nothing left to lose was capable of. I spent months researching David Chen, successful marketing executive, divorced, 2 kids of his own from his previous marriage, who visited every other weekend. He drove a leased BMW, lived beyond his means, and had a gambling problem that Sarah apparently didn't know about. I discovered he'd been skimming money from client accounts to cover his debts. Not enough to trigger an immediate audit, but enough to land him in federal prison if the right person brought it to the authorities' attention. I also learned that Sarah had been having her affair for over a year before I came home. While I was bleeding in a German hospital, learning to tie my shoes with one hand, she was playing house with David. The kids had been calling him Dad for months. My plan was simple: expose David's embezzlement to his employers and the FBI, destroy his career and his freedom, and watch Sarah's perfect new life crumble around her. It wasn't about getting my family back. That ship had sailed. It was about making them understand that actions have consequences. But as I dug deeper, I uncovered something even worse. Sarah had been collecting my disability benefits. While I was struggling to find work and sleeping on an air mattress, she'd been having my military benefits directly deposited into an account I didn't know existed. She'd been using my sacrifice, my injury, to fund her new life with David. That's when the plan changed. I'd learned patience in the Army. I'd learned how to gather intelligence, how to wait for the perfect moment to strike, how to hit the enemy where they least expected it. Sarah had declared war on me the day she abandoned me at that airport. She just didn't know it yet. I started with David's boss, a stern woman named Patricia Morse, who ran the marketing firm where both he and Sarah worked. I'd compiled everything: bank records showing the missing funds, email correspondence between David and his bookie, even photos of him at an illegal poker game downtown. I presented it all in a neat folder, along with a detailed explanation of how the embezzlement scheme worked. "Why are you bringing this to me?" Patricia asked, studying the documents with a furrowed brow. "Because theft is wrong," I said simply, "and because David Chen is stealing from you and your clients." Within a week, David was fired and under investigation. Sarah called me that night, screaming through tears. "You destroyed him. How could you do this to us?" "To us?" I laughed, a sound devoid of any humor. "There is no us, Sarah. You made that clear when you left me to come home to an empty house." "He might go to prison." The kids will be fine. They have their real father, remember?" But I wasn't done. Next, I contacted the VA fraud hotline and provided them with evidence of Sarah's benefits theft. Within days, investigators were demanding she repay every penny, with interest and penalties. The amount was staggering, over $45,000. I also reached out to Emma and Jake through their school counselors, not to violate the restraining order, but to ensure they knew the truth about why their father had abandoned them. I sent letters explaining how I'd come home to find them gone, how I'd never stopped loving them, how their mother had kept us apart. The counselors were legally obligated to share these letters with the children. Sarah's carefully constructed new life began falling apart piece by piece. David's legal troubles made the local news. The VA investigation into benefits fraud was public record. Their mortgage application for the big house was denied when David's criminal background check came back red-flagged. But the final blow came when Emma, now 13 and old enough to understand what had really happened, called me. "Dad!" Her voice was small, uncertain. "Mom said you didn't want to see us anymore." "That's not true, sweetheart. I've wanted to see you every single day since I came home." "But the restraining order—" "Your mother got that to keep me away from you. I've been trying to reach you and Jake for months." There was a long pause. Then, "Can I see you?" "There's a coffee shop near my school." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. The restraining order technically only applied to their home, workplace, and school grounds. The coffee shop was 2 blocks away, close enough for Emma to walk, far enough to keep me out of legal trouble. She was taller than I remembered, her face more mature. But her eyes, my eyes, were filled with confusion and pain. "Mom says you're dangerous now," she said quietly, "because of what happened to your arm." "Do I seem dangerous to you?" She studied my face for a long moment, then shook her head. "You seem sad." "I am sad. I lost my family when I lost my arm." Emma started crying then, and despite the public setting, despite the risk, I held her with my one good arm while she sobbed against my shoulder. "I missed you so much, Daddy." "Jake did too, but he's angry. He thinks you abandoned us." "I would never abandon you. Never." That's when Sarah found us. She must have been tracking Emma's phone because she burst into the coffee shop with David and 2 police officers in tow. "He's violating the restraining order," she screamed, pointing at me. "Arrest him." The officers approached cautiously, but Emma stood up and faced her mother with a fury I'd never seen in my gentle daughter. "He didn't violate anything. I called him. I wanted to see my dad." "Emma, get away from him right now." "No, you lied to me. You told me he didn't want us anymore, but he's been trying to see us this whole time." The scene in the coffee shop was devastating. Emma screaming at her mother, Jake hiding behind David, Sarah trying to drag both kids away while I sat helplessly watching my family tear itself apart. The police didn't arrest me. Emma was right. I hadn't violated the restraining order. But as they left, Sarah turned back with pure hatred in her eyes. "This isn't over," she hissed. She was right. It wasn't. Sarah's final desperate move was to try to have me declared mentally unfit, claiming PTSD and depression made me a danger to the children. She petitioned the court for a psychological evaluation, hoping to prove I was unstable. What she didn't count on was Emma testifying on my behalf. The court hearing was held on a gray Tuesday morning in November. Sarah sat with her lawyer, dressed in a conservative blue suit that made her look like a grieving widow instead of a woman who'd abandoned her wounded husband. David wasn't there. He was meeting with federal prosecutors about a plea deal. Emma, now 14, walked to the witness stand with her shoulders squared and her chin lifted. She looked like her mother, but had inherited my stubborn determination. "Emma," Sarah's lawyer began, "do you feel safe around your father?" "Safer than I feel around my mother," Emma replied without hesitation. The lawyer looked flustered. "What do you mean by that?" "My mother lies. She lied about why Dad wasn't there when he came home from the war. She lied about him not wanting to see us. She stole money that was supposed to help him because he got hurt fighting for our country. My dad might have lost his arm, but my mom lost her soul." The courtroom was dead silent. Sarah's face had gone pale. "Emma, that's enough," the judge said gently. "No, it's not enough." Emma turned to look directly at Sarah. "You abandoned him when he needed us most. You taught me and Jake that love is conditional, that we should only care about people who are perfect and whole. But Dad taught me that love means standing by someone even when things get hard, especially when things get hard." When Emma finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom except for Sarah's. The judge denied her petition for a psychological evaluation and instead ordered supervised visitation rights for me. It was a small victory, but it felt like winning the war. 6 months later, David was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for embezzlement. Sarah was forced to sell the big house to pay back the VA fraud penalties. She and the kids moved into a small apartment across town. Emma and Jake started spending every other weekend with me. It wasn't the family I dreamed of coming home to, but it was something. Jake was slower to warm up. He'd been angrier about what he saw as my abandonment. But gradually he began to understand the truth. Sarah never apologized, not for the affair, not for the abandonment, not for the lies she'd told the children. But I didn't need her apology anymore. I had something better. I had my kids back, and they knew who their father really was. On the 2-year anniversary of my homecoming, Emma surprised me with a scrapbook she'd been working on. It was filled with photos from before my deployment, letters I'd sent home from Afghanistan, and new pictures of us together. On the first page, she'd written, "To my dad, who lost his arm but never lost his fight. Thank you for never giving up on us, even when we gave up on you." I sat in my small apartment. I'd sold the empty house and moved somewhere with fewer ghosts, holding that scrapbook and finally understanding what victory looked like. It wasn't about revenge, though I'd certainly gotten that. It wasn't about destroying Sarah's new life, though I'd managed that too. Victory was Jake teaching me to play video games one-handed. It was Emma calling me every night to tell me about her day. It was having my children look at me and see not a broken soldier, but their father who'd fought his way back to them. Sarah had tried to erase me from existence, to pretend I'd never mattered. But she'd failed. I was still here, still standing, still their dad. My missing arm hadn't made me less of a man or less of a father. If anything, it had taught me what really mattered. The war in Afghanistan had taken my arm. But the war at home, that one I'd won. Sometimes late at night, when the phantom pain in my missing limb keeps me awake, I think about that first day home. Standing in that airport, waiting for a family that would never come. The man I was then, broken, abandoned, filled with rage, barely recognized the man I'd become. I'd learned that revenge wasn't about destroying your enemies. Real revenge was about refusing to let them destroy you. It was about rising above their betrayal, proving them wrong, and building something better from the ashes they'd left behind. Sarah had acted like I didn't exist when I came home from Afghanistan with one arm. But I'd proven that I not only existed, I endured, I fought, and I won. And that victory would last a lifetime.